Hi, I'm Stig Venås. I'm going to talk about some multicast tools I've been working on. They're called ssmping and asmping. As you might guess, ssmping is a tool to test SSM connectivity. So it's something similar to normal ping to check that you can receive multicast. This is done using UDP, so there's no special support needed in any operating systems or in the network. It's just, well, one server listening to a UDP port and a client sending packets to the port and so on. So the way this works is quite simple. You have some client called ssmping where you specify a source address, the address of some server you want to ping. The client joins S, G, the G is hard-coded, and then the client sends a unicast request and it gets hopefully 2 packets back, one unicast response and a multicast response. And it does this every second. And the result of this is something like this. So in this case we can see that we have sent 5 queries and we got some unicast and multicast responses. I should have had a pointer, I guess, but you can see here that we didn't get a response to the first unicast request. That's because the multicast tree wasn't established, but we got one to the second after 1 second, so that tells us that the multicast tree was in place within 1 second. You can also see that the number of hops for unicast and multicast are both 13, so hopefully that means we have congruent routing for unicast and multicast. You can't be sure, of course, but also the delay, or I should say round-trip time, the time from we sent a request until we got the unicast reply and the multicast reply are about the same. There's slightly more variation in the multicast times we can see if we look at the standard deviation at the bottom. So by doing this we can somehow compare the characteristics of the unicast and multicast, and that can be useful, I think. And we can see, well, some more information about the multicast. We don't just see that we can receive multicast, we get some additional info. So I think this is useful just both for end users that just want to know, can I receive multicast, but also for people that want to figure out whether things work as expected. This is more or less what I just said. And then there is also a tool called asmping, which is very similar. For asmping, you specify a group and the server to ping. I should say that the server for ASM is the same as the server for SSM. There's no difference, really. You just send responses to different group address. And this is much more fun than the SSM case because you have things like MSDP and you have switch from shortest shared tree to shortest path tree and so on. So here we can see some fun things like you get like 200 milliseconds delay for the first multicast response we get. And also it's only 7 hops instead of 23, which is the unicast path. That's probably because of data packet being sent for MSDP and some caching at the local rendezvous point. So we can see some interesting things like that. Also we see that eventually when we hopefully are on the shortest path tree, we have 21 hops while it's 23 for unicast. So the paths are not congruent. It's not so easy to see here in this example, but sometimes you can also tell when the switch is from the shared tree to the shortest path tree, or if that happens at all, just by looking at the number of hops the packets have traveled. So, I've been working on these tools, and I'm using them myself to debug things in my network, and I also know some other people using this stuff. You can get these tools if you want to play with them at the URL at the top there. It's available for most Unix-based platforms and Windows Vista and XP as well. And it supports both IPv4 and IPv6. after having written these tools, I also wrote another tool called MC First, which I think, at least to me, is kind of useful. Often I have people asking me, can you receive our multicast stream? And I don't really want to start up VLC or whatever. Well, I don't always want to do that. So with MC First, I can just specify a group and a port, and I can just see that I can receive the stream. So it just exits when it gets the first data packet, which is often just what you need. But you can also specify how long it should run or how many packets it should receive before it exits. Finally, I should also say that someone has also written a web interface to these tools. So you can, if you have this on a web server, then you or other people could go to that web server and check that the web server is able to receive multicast from them or perhaps from someone else. And there are a few sort of well-known servers out on the internet, so you could check that you could receive from these different servers. But you can also of course, deploy your own server to test multicast internally. And one thing I'm working on at the moment in our network is to have a number of nodes spread around the network, and like every half hour or whatever, have the different hosts ping each other in a mesh to check that each of them can receive from each other and collect historical data. But yeah, please go to that URL or talk to me or mail me if you want more information. That's it.